This time, I Know Not the Mind Probe, episode number 82, You Take the Who Road.
Welcome to, oh no, not the Mind Probe, because it's the North and Santa's up there.
Very good.
Probably. Folks, I don't want to confirm or deny that. Like, I don't know, whatever your thing is, if you believe there's a Santa up there, then he's there. If not, then it's just an old person in the snow.
I believe in Muhammad, the Sansara, and Santa. I feel like those three dovetail.
They live together. In an apartment in New Jersey.
But also, I believe in them, but I'm agnostic about all of them somehow. Okay. I don't know. Somehow.
Yeah, I think they live together, and it's like a remake of The Facts of Life.
Okay.
And I think like that movie. I would watch that.
Who's Tootie? Buddha?
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That's probably a lot of offensiveness just in that packed into that little 30 second scrap of information. Let's just say we respect. No, let's not say that.
No, you don't want to go this far.
Look, let's just say we respect The Facts of Life. Okay, folks, we respect the TV show.
Sacred, please. Mrs. Garrett, our savior. Yes,
it's going to pull together. It's a spin-off. Actually, it's a spin-off of Different Strokes, the housekeeper. Yeah, so just bear that in mind because that might come back later in this episode. Yeah. And now everybody's going to be like, I'm just going to fast forward to that part where that comes back. But you won't know where it's going to be.
Yeah, but they just have ChatGPT. They can just transcribe it.
Yeah, what happened? Ooh, are people going to use that on this? Well, whatever they're going to do, they're going to find it in this podcast, which is what this is, where we watch and rank every single Doctor Who episode ever. That is the Mind Probe guarantee. I'm John Grant. I guarantee nothing. I'm not the Mind Probe is a limited liability corporation, and so Porter and I we have got a liability shield that is airtight if we don't get through all these. But I've been watching Doctor Who for 38 years, so you can put that in your pipe and smoke it there, America.
That started to sound that like no reproduction of this without express written consent of Major League Baseball.
Yeah, actually, so for a lot of Mind Probe stuff, you do need express written consent of Major League Baseball. That was a weird writer in Porter's contract.
Yeah, they act as my de facto sort of PR.
And then they keep being like, "Why are you calling us?" And we're like, "Can you just write it down in an email?" And okay, I like how what they do it too. They'd be like, "Okay, sure."
Well, my name is Porter Mason. Yeah. John asked me to watch Doctor Who for 26 years. I finally said yes.
Here we go.
We, on this podcast, look at two stories from Doctor Who. We're going through the new series in order, right, from 2005. Is that right? 2005, right? Straight on through. We're in about 2013 right now. And we go through those in order. Then, for each one of those episodes, Doctor Who, John... Oh God!
That's the greatest moment of my life. I've been waiting for that for 38 years for somebody to finally see it.
I mistook John for Doctor Who. John, our Doctor Who sommelier pairs the NuWho story with the classic story.
I do.
We're a little pudgy here, folks.
I'm William Conrad. I'm William.
Please Google MST3K fridge alert William Conrad.
I think we talked about that in an earlier episode of this. So just go back to an earlier pod. We're going to tell you what's in.
Well, you're telling us what episodes we're going to watch. I'm going to find which MST3K episode that is, and you tell us what we're watching.
All right, we're going to watch Doctor Who. We're going to watch me on the screen now. We are headed to the north. That wasn't right. That was the Southerners saying the north. We're heading to the north. So we are going to the north. As again, I explained, if you stay up with all of the episodes, you would know from the last episode. But maybe don't listen to the tag at the end of our episodes. So I'll re-explain again. When I was putting this whole schedule together. I did it all at once, basically from memory. One just Coke fueled evening. and just post-it notes on the wall and stuff like that. Oh, his porter drinks a Diet Coke. It's like a little branding thing. And so I, in my head, thought the Crimson Horror took place in Scotland.
Fair.
So then I paired it with the Highlanders, which does definitely takes place in Scotland. Yeah. Upon review of the Crimson
the opposing
Horror,
coach threw that little flag. We had to, so we had to look into the tape.
We looked at it. It turns out the Crimson Horror is not set in Scotland, but just northern England. So it's still up.
It's there.
It's up. Yeah. So I think we're going to go with that. So we're celebrating the north. Anything north of London here is going to count. That's the Crimson Horror with Matt Smith, Jenna Coleman, and the return of the Paternoster gang, Jenny, Vastra, and Strax, basically getting their own little episode here. And we've paired that, as I just said, with the Highlanders. Patrick Troughton as the second Doctor in his second story.
Whoa.
And Ben Polly and the first appearance of one of Porter's favorites, Jamie.
Yay. All right, so we are going to recap these shows, but I do want to speak to some details from earlier. If you tune into MST3K 420, and this aired in 1992, the day after Christmas actually aired, The Human Duplicators. That is the episode where you can see the fridge alert. Richard Keel, if you remember Jaws from Bond, he is in this. It's a great episode. We also should definitely do an MST3K podcast.
Whoa, we'd be doing a podcast talking about people talking about movies.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Hugh Beaumont also in them. It's a great episode.
Yeah, the dad from Leave It.
Now, admittedly, I am so MST3K. If I can have a brief sidebar here on Mystery Science Theater 3000, was such a hugely important show to my youth, and here's what it provided for me. It provided, in some ways, an entire sense of humor that, like, I feel like I built off the many ways that they joked about things in there. But what it also provided me, just as importantly, was as like an 8-year-old. It was like who didn't go out and a middle schooler who didn't like have any friends and go out and do stuff. It was like, here's a 2-hour block of TV that you can watch and have something to do on a Friday and Saturday night. And so I watched so much MS2-3K, but then as an adult, they started making more Mystery Science Theater, and I was so excited, and then realized, I don't have 2 hours. I don't have like scores and dozens of hours to watch this. So I don't know. One day when I'm like 90, 100 years old and everyone I know has died, which I assume I'll outlive all of us.
Yeah, you'll bury us all.
Then I would love to get the MST3K streaming service and just run through these. But so I don't favor it over a healthy family life. That's the only thing. But at the time when I didn't have a healthy family and social life, it was great. It was amazing. So
so we can at some point maybe we should Riff Tracks, which is one of the successors. There's a lot of different ones out there. They watch more, but they have done the 5 Doctors, which we're coming up on, and they have done Doctor Who and the Daleks, which is one of the movies, the Peter Cushing movies. So they have hit a couple of Who's and a loving take on Doctor Who.
Maybe when we do those episodes, I will get those riff tracks.
Get those riff tracks out there. All right. But anyway.
Sidebar done.
Yeah.
The judge said he'll allow it. So.
back to whatever this podcast was. Benson, I think. Are we on Benson podcast yet? Okay, good.
So Benson, season 7, episode 11, The Crimson Horror. We mentioned this is kind of a Doctor and Clara light episode.
Yeah, they don't show up until 15-20 minutes in, I think.
It is story number 237. It aired on the 4th of May, 2013. We have a little clip right here that we'll listen to.
Let's go! Come on, we're not escaping. We got out the door to get Clara.
Long story. What now, madam? We could lay mimetic cluster bites.
Strax.
Or dig trenches and fill them with acid.
Strax, you're overexcited.
Have you been eating this jelly sherbet fancies again?
No.
Go outside and wait for me until I call for you.
But madam,
Go!
I'm gonna go play with my grenades.
Okay. I think
think she's about done. I know who you think she is, but she isn't. She can't be.
I was right then. You and Clara have unfinished business.
Hello, stranger.
Doctor.
Uh-huh.
Hi. What's going on?
Oh, haven't you heard, love? There's trouble up now. She's a lizard.
She's a lizard.
All right, so I probably missed stuff here, but I'll the basics are, yes, we have the gang. What did you call them?
The Pater, they I don't know.
Paternoster?
Paternoster gang. So they live on Paternoster Row, I believe, is the house. And so this is, I think, I don't know when they're called this on screen or if they ever are, but Stephen Moffat dubbed them the Pater, because we met them before for
for Clara's kind of
the
introduction.
The Victorian era one, the snowmen.
So we have a Silurian,
Mm-hmm.
her wife, who's
Jenny.
human. She's just boring. But she's a lesbian. She's the most exciting of all.
She's good with a sword, right? She's a fighter.
No, she's great. I just meant she's not an alien.
Yeah.
So she's human, and then we have a Centauran who's acting as their butler, but like that's kind of their team.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're this sort of little gang of detectives, and it's very light and comic reliefy. So what's going on here is they're investigating. A bunch of people are dying of what's being called the Crimson Horror. By the way, we got like COVID-19. Like the Crimson Horror is a much better description of a fun plague.
Nothing's ever a horror. We should really. I mean, I get it. I get what, but it feels like Trump would have called it the China horror if he'd thought of it.
Yeah. So people are like showing up dead, bright red skin, and one of the victims that they investigate, they're able to look in his retina. I guess you can retain or it's said that someone can retain the image of the last thing they saw in their retina. The doctor talks about this later in the episode and adds a kind of a scientific mumbo.
Yeah, it's something to do. It's not normal, but something to do with whatever is happening in this situation. Yeah.
So they are interested in that, and we get into now. One of these, it's called Sweetville, and this is a thing that was active, I guess, in the UK. I certainly knew it was in America for about different parts of 100 years. I guess it still is in a way now, but there'll be these little isolated communities, these utopian villages. In my mind, this sticks in right around the turn of the century, which is when this is set, where there started to be these little communities. Again, I know more about them in America. I don't know much about them, but I know that they existed in America around the turn of the century where, I don't know, like we're sort of starting into the Industrial Revolution things, and people just decided, like, you know what? We think we got it. We're going off by ourselves. We're buying some land. We're going to solve this thing.
Yep.
So this is one of these. It's called Sweetville, and they always had fun names.
Mm-hmm.
Sweetville, they would just have rules about living, and they'd say,
very Victorian ones.
Come with us, and we'll have rules, and if you follow them, you'll go to heaven, or you'll whatever it is. Like,
great rules. No gays wandering around doing gay stuff.
No, don't wander.
Yep. And just just happy people. Although in this case, in glass jars.
My favorite, the Shakers,
mm-hmm.
an American utopian community. They said, hey, work is really important. Let's all get together, make beautiful furniture, and never have sex, and never have babies. The Shakers died out, but they are a fascinating community. They recruited tons of people to get together and make furniture and not have sex.
Yeah. And you wonder if at some point, someone in one of the meetings was like, "Hey, so I'm doing the math here, and I see a flaw. I feel like this is really going to come to a head in 30 years." But
I just like all these like sexually frustrated people who are gonna make another chair. Chair perfect. Anyway, this episode, sadly, not about the Shakers, but
no.
There's a wonderful documentary about them. So, okay, they find the doctor. He has the Crimson Horror.
He's all red.
It's all red, and they're able to reverse it. He kind of talks them through it and like, put me over there and do this thing, and then they reverse it. And they say that he says, me and Clara were investigating this too. They'd gotten inside, but they said they were going to be preserved to survive an apocalypse. That's what the Crimson Horror is, essentially, is like pickling them, kind of. But it didn't work on the Doctor. And then we find Clara and reverse this process. This little flashback series where they showed this happened very
like
quickly.
Sepia toned and
yeah, and then when they got to the end of it, when they cut to them just being in the cult, actually shades of our last episode where the Doctor in Invasion of Time is that what it was called? Yeah. Anyway, the where the Doctor had this grand plan of like, I'm going to be the president and threw in everything for this other thing. This felt like. It's like, yeah, we're just going to go into the cult and just do everything they say for 100 years, but that's how we're going to get them. It's like, okay. Anyway, so Madame Vastra realizes that what they're doing at Sweetville is using the venom of a leech from the Silurian era. So that's exciting. We got a little prehistoric leech running around, and the deal is that the leader of Sweetville, Mrs. Gillyflower, is, she's mad with power, as
like
you
you
are.
do. Played by the great Diana Rigg, Dame Diana Rigg of the Avengers fame, and she's been in
enjoying herself, I think.
Yeah. She seems to be having a very good time.
What she is going to do is launch a rocket and spread poison all over the Earth, and everyone's going to die, except everyone in Sweetville, who I guess will have the leech. Whatever. I don't know. They'll have that stuff in them.
And they're all under glass, right? They're all being preserved until this poison thing get them, I guess. Yeah.
It was cute. I like how some of them are like sitting at a table inside a glass. Okay, so her daughter is there, and she's been like running experiments on her. And
the daughter's blinded. I can't remember, how did the daughter get blinded? I guess before or something. But yes, the daughter's not perfect, and so she's basically being lied to.
How does Mrs. Gillyflower? How has she built a rocket that's going to launch something all over Earth? How is that?
Is Mr. Sweet making her smarter in some way? It's a prehistoric parasite leechy guy.
But his name is Mr. Sweet.
Yeah,
he's so cute. I don't know.
I think it sort of is that it's that Victorian steampunk sci-fi thing, right? It's like, they could have done it. The Victorians, if we give them a little mojo there, they could have done it. They could have built this stuff and could have rampaged around and done stuff.
Well, anyway, and then she threatens her daughter. They eventually take her into custody. They launched the rocket, but they had already removed all the poison from it.
Yeah, Jenny and Vastra had done that, and then Strax basically shoots the
lady.
Her.
I mean, that doesn't kill her, but then she falls off the roof. Yeah. And then there's a nice little moment where the Doctor's like, well, I guess we could take this leech back in time, because it's just a leech, just like a regular leech.
Thing. Yeah, right. It's not
that in its time would have just been that. He's like, yeah, we'll take it back and put it back with its friends. That she takes a cane and smashes it. the daughter, Mrs. Gillyflower's daughter.
And the Doctor's just like, or not. Matt Smith has some funny comic timing in this one.
So, and then again, maybe more of this is coming very soon. I hope so. Because again, I just felt like we're speaking to, but then completely stepping around the Clara backstory. So, one, we know that they saw Clara earlier. We saw this episode. It was an episode.
Yeah.
and then they speak. Vastra, I think, speaks to it and says like, "Aha! I knew you had a connection with Clara." But then they just never talk about it.
Yeah.
The fact that she died. Yeah. Now she's here, and then at the end of the episode, she's back with. We mentioned last podcast that she's apparently like a nanny or something.
Yeah.
And we're back. Right. We're back with them.
Yeah.
They find out that she's a time traveler,
which they accept very quickly.
They're like, great, this is so cool.
Awesome. Yep.
And then they come along on the TARDIS. It seems like, I guess that's next episode. I don't know.
Seems like a plot device that needed to be inserted in for some reason. She it establishes that he's bringing her back, like, so it's clearly like they're going out on like day trips, which is kind of a thing with Clara. This is a sort of thing Moffat plays with throughout the rest of Clara's time, which is basically that she still has a life. Maybe this is his reaction to. Well, but she still has a life. She has a job. Eventually she find out she has a job. She gets a boyfriend. She's got all this stuff going on in her life, and so she keeps coming back and forth, and it gets into a little bit of living that dual life. Yeah, this is if you thought, hey, this seems a little gay, this episode, Mark Gatiss once again.
Oh, Mark
that would explain it. Certainly the humor in it is very much Mark Gatiss. Although they must have been running short on time, because there is that incredibly dated joke about Tom Tom that is so there's the scene where Strax is riding the carriage. He's lost. The horse is moving, and then he's trying to figure out where he's going, and this little kid comes up and gives him directions in a very like Siri would now, but it was like, go down here, take a left, and then you will have arrived at your destination.
Oh yeah.
And then he's like, oh, you're very helpful, young man. What's your name? And he goes, Thomas. I was like, oh, well, Thomas. And it's like, okay, so Tom, which was a brief period of where you could have a driver, the
Garmin and Tom.
Exactly. Your GPS system in your car. But it's like a 3-minute segment where they like to tell this joke that doesn't really advance the plot or have anything to do with it. It's a very weird moment. I can't tell. Someone must have come up with that joke and really loved it. You get it also has the very good. It's got the very it's that sort of Victorian Gothic fiction-y thing of that like really grotesque storyline, right? I mean, the bright red people in Mr. Sweet, and it's in the steampunk, and it's a very it is very much a particular genre, right? Of like, and it fits with the Paternoster gang. Like, sort of one of the running jokes of it is like, that period in London of like, sort of Conan Doyle and Sherlock Holmes, and it was like all these outlandish things just happened there because London was just this crazy city. And so, yeah, she's a lizard woman, and they're always like, you must have some real weird deformity that makes you look like a lizard. But they're like, okay, like, I mean,
right,
sort of an acceptance of it. So that's what's going on here. It gives it a very interesting jump. But the most, I think, extraordinary thing about this one is that, the first 15-20 minutes is really a Paternoster gang mystery. Right, it's the group of them in their house, and they're solving crime. They get people come to them, and they have the running joke of the guy who keeps fainting every time he runs into them or something like that. It's kind of like, it is a bit Dr. Light, but then it's also kind of like, oh, what interesting. Like, if there's sort of another series, it'd be a backdoor pilot, right?
Well, right. I was gonna say, did they ever have a Sarah Jane Chronicles type thing? Did they ever?
No, that just started, and Torchwood is sort of set up right in the series. Although the Captain Jack bit of it, well, yeah. But yeah, all of that is never quite full it, but yeah, this is the closest you would get to an actual backdoor pilot, which for folks not in the biz, a backdoor pilot is when you and you see this is used to be more common. I still see it. The Good Doctor just had one, but it's where they basically in the regular run of a series, they do an episode that usually involves the characters, but also introduces a whole new set of characters and sort of focuses on them. And they, if that dynamic were great, it would end up becoming, they sort of are testing. It's a test run, and they're like, people really like this series, and they then decide, okay, we could spin this off.
Is that what you think? You think they're working on, like, hey, maybe this is a thing?
So. I don't think so. So there is a spinoff,
but it's so I don't know. It's just so noticeable, and they're so kind of iconic looking. Like, they seem ready to be their own thing. And from reading on Wikipedia, it looks like they've had some, webisodes and stuff like that.
They had some webisodes. The Big Finish, of course, has done a spin-off series of them, but they do that for everybody.
Can I ask you something about the Big Finish? Are there just like thousands of people working on the Big Finish constantly? Like, it feels as though there are over 17 million Big Finish stories.
Yeah, I don't quite. I think it's a pretty lean operation in terms of because I think it's just sort of contract, writers. And of course, a lot of people, I mean, I don't know how much money they actually get as a writer, but I think a lot of people are just like, ooh, I just want to write Doctor Who, and I can do that. And I get Tom Baker will read my words. Like, I mean, I think they don't have to.
Right.
And then I think they contract with the actors, of course.
But it's just so prolific. There's so many stories.
Yeah, but the thing is, it only takes like a day to do an hour and a half, right? I mean, because they just rock up, or actually now they all record from their homes. In some cases, they just so you just got the script in front of you, and you just kind of roll through it, and then they throw on some sound effects and music. So yes, it is very prolific. There are many spin-offs. It's gonna be interesting to see what's about to happen because, we'll talk about this a bit. Anyway. But yes, I have to wonder. I have to think Stephen Moffat did consider a spinoff for them, and I don't know if he just didn't have time or what. I mean,
I feel like if you're the actors playing them, you're like, oh boy, something's happening.
Gonna happen, everybody. Yeah, but yes, no, it's a good one.
Are we going to start to find out more about Clara soon?
Yeah, I mean, well, we'll find out the whole answer in like 2 episodes. So.
Oh, okay. All right, great. All right. Well, let's move on to the classic episode. We are going to take a look at The Highlanders, season 4, story 4, only the 31st of 300 Doctor Who stories ever. Number 31, a 4-parter. It aired over Christmas, the 17th of December, 1966. Through the 7th of January 1967, excuse me. And this is the second Doctor, and we have Ben and what's her name?
Polly. Yeah,
we have Ben and Polly, but then we have the introduction of Jamie. And yes, you say that I like Jamie. Jamie's a very popular companion, not just with me. And the longest serving second Doctor companion. I mean, he's there for the rest of the second Doctor, right? So this is fun. This is we'll talk about it more, but only available in audio. It looks like there are a couple of screen captures, but maybe not enough to really do much.
They got some out there, and maybe it'll be animated or something one day. But it's not much of it left.
But this is a bit of a historical epic about the Scottish Highland.
Yeah,
we have a clip here, and then we'll talk about the show.
Enter. Pardon, I thought that...
Yes, thought what?
The solicitor.
Your master's a very sick man. He's gone to lie down. It's lucky for him I was called in time. For great heavens, man. Your eyes.
What?
Your eyes. Come over here to the light. Your eyes, man. You suffer from headaches?
No, I don't. Oh!
Oh, dear. No headaches?
Well, what? Oh!
Oh, dear. You call me a liar?
No. Me head does ache.
Of course it does. What do you expect? Yeah, all right.
Me eyes? What did you find?
Print blindness. You read too much.
Well, it's true. I'm a clerk. What must I do?
You must rest then for at least an hour.
But I...
That is my prescription. Ignore it at your peril. Now, lie down on the table. That's right. And put this over your eyes and rest them for at least an hour.
I love
Hysteria.
it. This is basically the episode of Doctor Who that led to the formation of Monty Python. Like this is I could see a direct linkage here.
Patrick Troughton having a whale of a time in this episode.
Well, so again, it's only available on audio, so I got it off of Audible. It's available in a couple different places, but it's both. I think you wish you could see it, but also it actually is such an audio story. That was the Doctor as a German doctor,
Dr. Von Wehr, yeah.
And he also plays a kitchen maid,
soldier. It's all. So one of the things apparently when he took the job, Patrick Troughton said, "Oh, I'd love to be able to dress up a lot," and so apparently they honored that here.
Definitely. So yeah, this is a unique one because it's maybe not for us over here, not a part of history that we know that much about, but this is kind of like one of the historical epics.
It's a big moment for Scotland, yeah.
The Romans or something like that, where we're looking at. This is shortly after the Battle of Culloden.
Culloden,
I
believe is how you say it.
The British Army has just beaten back the rebel forces of Bonnie Prince Charlie,
the Jacobites.
And when they arrive like kind of right in the middle of this war, and the Scottish troops are retreating.
Yeah.
And we meet Jamie, who's the piper,
Piper,
of
yeah.
of the Lord or the Laird, Colin McLaren. He's been wounded. Anyway, they think the Dr. Ben and Jamie are spies, right? Well, they have English accents.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's a repeated thing the whole time, which I think is funny. That takes, I think it's Ben who takes a while to get through it. He's like, they're like, oh, the English are coming. And Ben's like, great. We're all
thank goodness,
friends,
the English.
right? It'll be great. And they're like, no, we hate the English. It's like, oh, I'm sorry. He keeps getting confused by this. So, and then Polly gets away with actually Lord McLaren's daughter. They're hiding. And then there's just lots of stuff going on where we're getting to know more about the Scottish Highland Wars and how they're living there and what's going on. There's people are being enslaved and put on ships and sold off to the colonies. What year is this?
1745-ish, I think, is something in there. Yeah.
Yeah, a bunch of stuff going on. Gosh, there's Gray, who's this kind of shady character,
right? So he's basically he's going to sell them as slaves.
Yeah,
the prisoners, but he's got to still do it legally. So they basically are
indentured servitude.
Agree to go, and then actually they're going to not be that.
So Ben and Jamie are on the Lord McLaren. They don't sign. They attack. They get off there. The doctor then here's where we have the doctor is like pretending to be a kitchen maid, the German doctor. And then they get back together. They make up a story about they believe that there's a legend about Bonnie Prince Charlie having escaped the battle dressed up as a woman, so that's one of the reasons they think at the beginning that they're with the prince. Anyway, so they are captured again. Revolt happens. They get out. Lots of stuff happens. They're able to get out of here, and then they invite Jamie to come with them on the TARDIS, and he accepts. And I think Jamie's a lot of fun right from the beginning. It's so interesting that they thought of him. I just wouldn't think of this episode and think like, let's have that guy for like 3 seasons. And it totally works, obviously, as we see later. But
yeah. Well, they weren't.
What
so
an
they
interesting
weren't
idea.
Going to. So apparently, they actually filmed. The original ending was Jamie staying, and then I think they all liked him and enjoyed working with him on the show and stuff like that. And I think they made a late and then they decided that Ben and Polly were going to leave soon, so they kind of made a late decision. So I think they actually went back and picked up a couple shots where they had him going with them instead. They're like, let's do a quick reboot here or remount here, and so they made it was a last minute decision. So sort of the contrast to Leela leaving. Last time we were talking about where they're just like, she's got to go now.
Leela leaving was essentially Poochie leaving on The Simpsons. Like, I am going to stay in Gallifrey now, dubbed over. Yeah.
This so this is let's get to this is a deeply personal story for me. This is my family is Scottish. Grant's very Scottish name, and my side of the Grant family fought for Bonnie Prince Charlie, and I believe if the history we have is correct, were sent as indentured servants to America.
That's how you got here.
That's how my side of the family got to America in the 1740s, and. I've been to this battlefield. It's a famous site in Scotland, outside of Inverness, I believe.
And is that why you watch Doctor Who? Because you're still enslaved by the English, and they force you to watch Doctor Who.
And I have to promote it. And I was like, all right, I'll do a podcast, I guess. And they're like, yeah, you will. Yeah. I've been there. If you go to Culloden, they have a very cool museum that sketches out the whole history of the war and then the progress of the battle. You can go out onto the field, and there are plaques where the different clans were. So I can actually Grants were on both sides. My Grants, however, were on the losing side. So it's a major moment. It's a battle over the Stuart line to the throne of England, right? So there was Charles was exiled. He was raised in France, and so they referenced the French blockade, I think, here at one point, because the French did sort of support the Scots, but not really. Kind of we just do what you do to sing we would like to. I don't know if that was a French accent, but anyway. So yes, so that's the brief history here. This is on that note, this is the last pure historical story until you get to Black Orchid in the Fifth Doctor one. That was the mystery one.
You just never did them in the third and fourth
They
Doctor.
basically the implication is that they formally decided to drop them after this. That they weren't the more people wanted to watch the they wanted to watch the monsters, right?
Right.
And so that this these weren't as big as the sci-fi stories, and so I think they kind of were like, let's retire these stories. Which is too bad because
with the NuWho, when they bring them back, they mix in monsters.
Right. There's always a little sci-fi element. So this is the last, and I mean, remember the remit of the show initially was to be educational. So you go back to the first Doctor, you get all these every once in a while. There's just a pure historical story where they're just like, we're lost in King Charles's time and we got to go find him. Maybe that's why they dropped the plots. So this is it. I've heard some reviews that don't like this story very much and said you can see why they dropped them. It's a comedy. It's clearly a comedy. You could tell that Pat Troughton is still trying to figure out the role, right? The Doctors are still sort of, if you remember Power of the Daleks, which is the one, his first story, he's sort of mysterious and he's not always giving straight answers and you kind of aren't sure of this guy, and he's still kind of playing that, which is cool. I love the costumes and the humor that he's doing. I love Polly. I think Polly is great in this story as well. With the she keeps calling him Finch, the British soldier who she's basically got a holdover, and she called him Algie, and I think it's great. She's very confident and great. And then you get the great Jamie Fraser Hines, who was basically, I don't know, he's very young, I think, when he started on Doctor Who.
I think he was 20 or 22 or something.
Yeah, and he was a child actor before that. So he was very actually experienced in TV work even before coming on to Doctor Who. And then he and Pat Troughton, of course, really hit it off. And I think it's partly why he stayed. But yeah, it's actually not a particularly complex story. I've only really listened to it a couple times, and I found myself really enjoying it actually this time. And but then I was like, but I think part of me is like, because it's hard to pay attention when it's just the audio and stuff like that. But then I was focusing on it this time, and I was just like, it's not actually that complicated. It's there's got to be slow to slavery. And you got to get them off the slip, and yeah.
In the one I listened to, they add in narration, and I think that's Pat Troughton doing it. So
no, it's Fraser Hines, but yeah, the narration is great, right? It makes it
interesting.
Yeah, he's not actually Scottish, so he's just playing.
Oh, very interesting.
He's what's called an actor.
I've heard of this,
and so he's playing a role. It's fascinating. It really is amazing.
Well, I'll take the low road and you'll take the who road, and I'll find themes and ideas that thread through different things that we're watching, and before you, I'll explain them, and then so on and so on. Yeah, very good.
That was beautiful.
I like to celebrate your proud heritage.
Yeah, is that a dirge? Is that what it's called? I don't know what those are called.
Yeah, maybe. We are adherents of repeating themes, and we like to look at some ideas that thread themselves through Doctor Who and time and space themselves. John, what did you want to touch on in this?
Let's talk about the spin-offs, like the facts of life from different strokes. Call back.
No! How did he do it? You magnificent bastard!
It's all keeping all that in my head the whole time was very difficult to do.
Very good.
Well, I don't know. I don't know that we've talked about this before. If we have, we've got updated information, so I'm sure, and no one's going back to the old ones.
No.
Or it was 70 episodes ago and they've already forgotten. But yeah, let's talk about the spin-offs. So there are very few spin-offs in Doctor Who history. We have the Sarah Jane Adventures, pre newish series. There was only the attempt at K9 and Company, which is what the lost, I believe, the lost episode of our humble little podcast here. We've never broadcast it. We watched it as a test run. Remember our pilot?
We watched K9 and Company, and then we
Sarah
watched
Jane. We watched one of the Sarah Janes. That is an unaired pilot episode. The network did not like it.
No,
they said we had no chemistry. Porter did it all in blackface too, which was
I just thought
was a weird choice.
I don't know. It seemed relevant at the time.
It was a different time. I'm just kidding, Porter.
It was 2 years ago.
And none of us have ever done blackface, just for the record, folks.
Oh, for the record.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, is surprising because we did grow up in Virginia in the 80s.
Yeah,
so
right.
Apparently, everyone
was
blackface.
I don't know.
John and I missed the memo on this.
But I mean, so then the newer series, we've got a couple. We have Sarah Jane, we have Torchwood, but that's kind of it. And then now we're heading into a world of it's clear they're about to come. Like the rumors we're going to get a unit one with Kate, and I think other stories are going to come. And Russell Davies has said, like, hey, I'm back in, and I'm creating the Marvel universe of spin-offs and series and all that kind of stuff.
That's what he said in this. As he's taking back the mantle now.
Yeah, so he's got a whole production company. I think they're going to stand up all this stuff, and I think they may even be doing like they're already filming and editing next season, or maybe even 2 seasons. Like I feel like they're getting a bunch of Doctor Who in the can so that they can focus on other stuff.
And you said that it's now going to be on Disney Plus.
Yeah, so, internationally it'll be on Disney Plus.
Now,
BBC still at home, but internationally.
No, I don't know a lot about this, but Disney Plus, or Disney, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
Seems to make these universes. They're kind of interested in that. I would say.
Yeah, I feel like that. Yes, that has to have been.
They might even be in some way encouraging him to do that.
They could be asking him to do it.
Using what's called money to encourage him.
So I was going to say earlier, but I didn't want to ruin this segment by getting ahead of myself. It'll be interesting. So Big Finish is answers to Cardiff, which is where Doctor Who's produced, and has to sort of all the ideas and scripts will get run through there, and Cardiff has sort of a right of first refusal to sort of be like, you don't do that. We're about to do a whole series on that, or you can't use this character. And so what'll be interesting to see is how many, if any, of these spin-off series suddenly stop production or stop being released by Big Finish, because that will be a sign of like, oh yeah, actually they're going to do a unit series, or maybe they'll take the ideas and everything from that. I don't know. But yeah, it's interesting that Doctor Who. So Russell Davies has said, why doesn't Doctor Who have tons of spin-offs, right? Why aren't we watching the Nyssa Chronicles? It's like, but I don't know. And then, trying to compare this and bring this to the facts. Like, why were there used to be a lot of spin-offs on TV? I mean, Happy Days spun off everything.
And those are interesting because it's very different from the newer kind of universe expanding thing like Marvel and Star Wars, where yes, the different shows and movies have different feels, but to some extent, or maybe to a large extent, but they all do feel like of a piece. This is, for all the Marvel ones are involving superheroes. In the spinoffs that we were referencing, like Facts of Life and Happy Days and those whole Different Strokes universe and stuff like that, other than they were multi-camera sitcoms, they were completely different. And the linking character between them was usually not really relevant after 2 episodes. And so, honestly, it felt like back then with those, and I don't know if it happened as much on dramatic series, though maybe some. I think it was, and you mentioned backdoor pilots, I think it was just like an easy way for them to, I don't know why the networks necessarily let them do this, but like they would let them put their next thing in front of it so that they could get it agreed to. And rather than go through the whole pitching series, and I guess the networks liked it because, again, if it could just get that thing off the ground, then it could get popular.
Got inbuilt audience, right? People maybe will carry on from it, or at least you get your first, Versus, if your
Because
first
they had
episode
nothing
is
to do with one another.
right,
I don't know why they approached it in that way.
Mork and Mindy was a spin-off of Happy Days.
Happy Days was about
Happy Days was about the 60s.
Families in the 50s.
Yeah.
And then Mork and Mindy was about an alien living in the 70s. It seemed
70s and 80s in Boulder, Colorado. Like, it made no sense.
No sense.
And it was, I think, actually, I went down a Wikipedia rabbit hole on this one. I was reading about it. It was like, I think the Happy Days episode, it was a dream that Mork showed up and I don't know, did something with Fonzie or whatever. But then I think when they realized it was going to be a spin-off, they like re-edited it to make it sort of like, oh, it was a dream, or was it? And then like kind of
they must have just
very
done those episodes, and then basically they would get the Nielsen for the episode and be like, look, people liked it.
People want to watch this.
I would think in modern day, stuff like Parks and Rec would have been a spin-off of The Office. Like they would have worked that in.
Yeah.
They didn't. That's not how that goes. But like,
I mean, I just saw. Well, so often, like the big franchises like NCIS, like CSI, Miami was. There was the backdoor pilot was in CSI, right? And they like, this murderer has gone to Miami. You should go see what's up there, and then there's a whole another.
Those spinoffs are a little more connected, but yes.
And then I enjoy The Good Doctor, which is a very good drama, which is about
of The Good Wife.
No, not quite. It's The Good Fight is a sequel to The Good Wife, I guess. But anyway, The Good Doctor is about this autistic savant, I think is the terminology, doctor, a surgeon, played by Freddie Highmore, and very good. And so yes, they just had an episode called The Good Lawyer. He gets sued for medical malpractice, and his lawyer is I think she has OCD, and so it's about and it also has Felicity Huffman is in it and stuff like that. And it's funny because this is a show I just watch casually, so I don't pay that much attention to the behind the scenes stuff. And so I'm just watching, it's coming along my regular episode, and I just start watching it, and it's just like, oh, we're spending a lot of time with this lawyer person. And I was like, oh, her boss is Felicity Huffman, and she doesn't have that much to do in this episode. I was like, that's odd. And then I'm just like, oh, this is a backdoor pilot. Like, so you can tell when it's coming. But back to Doctor Who.
Yeah, why haven't they done this more?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, there's some argument that it might dilute the brand. So one thing that they've always been very specific about, except for those movies, I guess, the two Peter Cushing movies, is they're always kind of like, there should only be one doctor on the screen at all times. Like, so that you don't have, because there's a lot of people who would really like a Paul McGann series, The Eighth Doctor, because he only did the one series, he went to one show, or the one movie, and he's done a bunch of audios, of course, but he's still pretty young, and also it's established that his character, he lived for a long time in his role in the Time War and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, oh, you could do like one, and everybody kind of really wants them, but I think the showrunners are always like, well, there's one doctor at a time, kind of everybody, and they come back, but have a whole series.
Fair enough, but there's so many other side stories. Also, by the way, one doctor at a time, it's fine. Notably, Doctor Who's not on the air now for many months.
Yes, that is some argument. Like, do a limited series or something like that. I mean, you're a Marvel person. You're a Marvel.
I am a medical Marvel.
Yeah. But there's or the Star Wars spin-offs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or now even Star Trek has a huge sort of universe.
Right, yeah, they have many.
It's like, is that, I don't know, do you ever find it annoying where it's kind of, especially because they're all produced at the same time, and they're all crossing over left, right, and center, and just kind of like, now I got to watch 37 TV shows to keep up with what the hell's going on.
Well, again, thinking back to my time as a middle schooler or high schooler, I would have been like, this is the best thing ever. I never have to leave the house. It's amazing. So I would have appreciated it more then. I think that all happened as I got older in a bunch of properties. Not unsurprisingly, me as a middle-aged man in my prime earning years, suddenly all the media seemed to be catered toward things I used to like when I was in high school. I think it was really exciting when it first started, and the series and the spinoffs were good, and then they still are good. But now it's become like, yeah, I guess I'll get around to that when I get around to it.
Mm-hmm.
I still haven't finished there's a really good Star Wars series called Andor that's on Disney Plus.
Yeah, we watched a couple episodes and it fizzled out, but
it gets really good by the end. It's Tony Gilroy made it, and I believe he's the guy who did Michael Clayton. But it becomes almost like a spy movie by the end, and it's very good. But saying all that is very good. I still haven't really finished it. There's 2 episodes I haven't watched. I'm like, yeah, I guess I'll get to it at some point. And there's a few different Marvel series where there's just too much stuff. That I guess it's part of the problem as being a spinoff problem. I think it's a larger media, not problem, but just a reality of, I feel like you have to give yourself over to the fact, both with media, music, whatever. There's just so many things. Like you cannot and will not watch or listen to all the things. So
yeah.
I think it's ultimately so some people don't like that because they feel like this, like you said, this dilutes it.
Yeah. And they want to be completists.
You know, some of the things aren't maybe perfect, whereas they're thinking back to the first movie or the first couple movies that they saw and so those were just perfect and we should have just left it crystalline and by itself. To me, and I would imagine you would feel the same given your obsession with Doctor Who and The Big Finish being a perfect example of it, it'd be like, yeah, let's have more stuff. We like this stuff. Let's have more of it. It all won't be perfect. That's okay. None of it is so far. Like Doctor Who seems ripe for it because there's just, I mean, the main line of it itself is sort of overabundant and enormous. That adding in spinoffs is sort of like, yeah, why not? Now, I think what would be nice is then you could use it to keep the Doctor rule. And this is what Marvel has done and Star Wars to an extent too. Say like, hey, great, in these other series, we can do stuff that like we always thought were cool ideas, but we couldn't do in the main movies because that's not what it's about. But the world implies these other things. And now we get to see it and explore it. The Mandalorian was essentially a Western in Star Wars and stuff like that. So I think it provides a lot of interesting places to explore, I think, and Doctor Who is totally set up to explore.
And if anything, it's easier for Doctor Who because it's like they've already established, even within the series itself, that you can do any genre. And so that does feel like it is the key to like, it's if you just do, if you compare, if you just did CSIs or NCISs, which is just you do the same show in a different location. I mean, that is what the spinoffs are, right? It's like NCIS Hawaii, and it's like it's the same core composition of characters doing the same things. And hey, I'm there. I watch it.
Right, you like all of them,
but I like that. That I watched that in part just for the comfort part of it, right? That's just the same. It is the same thing. But like, Doctor Who, and then you're seeing this with Star Trek, and you're seeing this with Star Wars and things. It's like, okay, we'll do it. The spinoff will be in the universe, but it'll be a comedy. It'll be a because you got like She-Hulk Attorney at Law, which is a comic, thing, which is pretty entertaining.
And by the way, the Big Finish being like a good thing to mention because for Marvel and to some well, in a big way with Star Wars, but Marvel in a huge way. That She-Hulk stuff, that's right out of the comics. I mean, like they would do that, and because Marvel would do the same thing with their comics, be like, "This is a funny comic. Genre, this is this, whatever." And so they have this huge thing to pick from, and I mean, you have the Big Finish, like you have all these to pick from.
There's a really interesting. So one of the Star Trek spinoffs that's really good is Strange New Worlds, which I've heard that's really talked about this, and I really enjoyed it. But so apparently there's seasons coming up, and apparently there's a crossover now between Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks, which is an animated
which I've heard is very good as well.
Star Trek, and it's very good. But so now they basically cast actors, or maybe it's even the voices of these characters to play them, and they like beam on board, and they're obviously they're not animated. Like it would be weird if it was like Meerkat from 30 Rock just walking through. But this interesting to crash the genres together too and see what you can play with and stuff like that.
I think that'd be cool. I think there's still like a general tone that you have to keep throughout because that's what the thing is. Marvel can have comedies because that still fits with. There is humor in the Marvel movies and the Marvel universe. I think it would be hard to have a Star Wars comedy. I'm sure it could have it, but like there's funny moments in I don't know. There's a tone thing. Now, Doctor Who has these elements, but there is a tone to it, right? And so it'd have to keep that. or stay within some sort of wider bounds.
You couldn't have like Doctor Who like Fatal Attraction.
Right. So, but what I think is, I guess people would care more about this than Star Wars, because Marvel's in the comic book universe, so it's
Yeah.
like anything you can think of plot wise, you can somehow tie it back together. But they do stuff to tie larger plots in with the movies and stuff like
Right.
that. Fine. Anyway, I guess the thing was with the comic books, that's part of what comics already like to mess with. With Star Wars, I think you might think, wow, well, what do we do? Because what happens in this movie that is implied, like, are we gonna basically make it mess up, like complicate the plot line?
Right. Yeah.
But I think what they ended up doing is they focus on key moments and then they kind of back out from them. And so like in key moments, because it's a whole literal universe. So they're like, yes, well, this one fact is known and happened in the main movies, and that will be referenced and talked about in this movie. But then these people go off and have a life, and it doesn't really interact with it. Like, it just interacts with that one fact. And so that seems to work pretty well. Yeah. I mean, they seem to be making money at them. Although I don't.
Well, yes,
what you hear right now is that there's a lot of pullback from that, and that with the streamers in general, that it's like, wow, we sunk a bunch of money into these shows, and is there not going to be as much of that in future years? So I don't know. But
well, that's, I mean, certainly these shows are probably. It'd be interesting to look at the numbers, right? So spinoff number 1 brings with it 80% of the audience. Does spinoff number 2 bring then 60% of that audience? Like, is it diminishing? Like, only certain people are going to follow them all the way down the rabbit hole?
Well,
or I'd be curious to see how.
Well,
it
I
goes.
think this is
It probably never brings a new audience. No one ever comes in for the spinoff.
No,
unless they're lucky get it.
But remember, it's a different equation. So this is what they're, I'm sure what they're trying to figure out, which is, okay, when you had it on TV and you were going to air the new season of Dallas for 20 weeks, what you were concerned with was people tuning in and watching Dallas. That's what you were concerned with. Well, now what you want is them to come onto Disney Plus and be a subscriber and stay a subscriber.
Yeah.
So then the problem is, like, you could come on. Let's say you're a huge Star Wars fan. You might just come on and then like watch all the Mandalorian and then be like, great, when they have a new one, I'll join up again.
Yeah.
And then the stuff in between, is the Doctor Who spinoff. I'm not interested in that. So so then it's a different programming of, like, you're trying to program stuff continuously, because otherwise you don't really get anything for them. And so now actually you're seeing a lot of the streamings. Basically everything's like coming back. Literally the iPhone just introduced a feature that's like when your answering machine back in the day, which is like, hey, remember when people could call your answering machine and you could just listen to see where they were, and if you liked it you could pick up the phone? Like, the iPhone just introduced that feature. It's like, that's the same thing we had. The same thing, the streamers are slowly turning back into cable stations. Like, they're going to have ads, they're going to start showing stuff more live, because there's just an easier way to monetize the ad dollars on that. They can monetize that, and then the thought would be like, everything's going to shift over to streaming. Now, a lot of us may have really liked that, but it's like, if they can't make money that way, it's going to shift right back to being ad supported and not time shifted and stuff.
I'll say this then. I think now is the time for us to announce our spinoff, Mind Probe Babies. Which is us. It's an animated series with us as a little children versions of ourselves, but still just doing the same podcast.
And that's available on Mind Probe Plus. You can get that right now. And you just have to email us, actually.
It's on OnlyFans. It's one of the most disappointing. It's been rated the most disappointing OnlyFans. Everyone.
All right, John.
Yeah.
Look, there are 300 official Doctor Who television stories. As we mentioned, might about to be a lot more, but we're going to have to differentiate the Doctor Who main
official main range, and then a spin-off.
Well, we've ranked 162 of them. We're going to rank a couple more. I will start. I enjoyed both these. They're not going to end up at the very top of my list, but I enjoyed both of them. I'm going to start with, I'll start with the Crimson Horror. I enjoyed it, but it ended up kind of like right in the middle of the pack for me. It didn't compare favorably to some of the other NuWho historical ones. What was it? Tooth and Claw is one of my favorite ones. I liked the very early one, the Dickens
one, the Unquiet Dead.
Yeah. So didn't compare as favorably with that, but pretty good. I have it around Good Man Goes to War, Aliens of London, World War III, Girl in the Fireplace. I have those just above it. So I have it at 84 out of 162. So yeah, right in the middle. Good episode, just not, at the top of the heap.
Yeah, got it.
The Highlanders, I ranked higher than that. I have it pretty high for a classic Who. I have some classic Who high, but generally the top ones are more NuWho. I have it ranked number 51.
Wow.
I just really enjoyed it. And honestly, had it been visual, has been a visual element to it, I probably would have ranked it, 10, 15 higher. I thought it was just fun. I do really like Jamie, so it was like obviously a very Jamie-centric episode. I like the historical ones. And yeah, Patrick Troughton was clearly just having so much fun. And you mentioned Polly was good too. Like it was light. And yeah, just really enjoyable. So I have it right below Night Terrors, which is a completely different episode. I interestingly ranked it right above Dinosaurs on a Spaceship. Because that was an example of one where I was like, yeah, I enjoyed it more than this. So yeah, 51. Again, not in the top 10, but for a classic one, I really enjoyed it. So yeah, that's my ranks. Am I wrong?
You're making me regret my ranking because I didn't. Maybe I should put Highlanders higher, but I couldn't. I didn't do it. So
your heritage, John.
I know. So I like Crimson Horror too. Fun, funny. Not wildly memorable. Sort of again that I have a complex relationship with that Victorian grotesque thing. Like it's a weird genre to me. I get it. I understand. It's a very specific genre, and for whatever reason, it's always a little odd to me. Sort of mixing that sci-fi with sci-fi horror with sort of the everyday of Victoriana is kind of interesting, but also it's just not quite my cup of tea. So I got it at number 68, right by Day of the Daleks, Rose, Spearhead from Space, Below Father's Day. Solid, funny, Matt Smith and Clara doing great, and I like the Paternoster gang. That's probably what's bumping it up for me, is that they're just fun and interesting.
They're fun, yeah.
Highlanders all the way down at number 107, right around Black Orchid, which I guess makes sense to mention. Maybe I'm regretting this. Maybe it should be a little bit higher. I agree 100%. It's funny. It's you can follow it. It's not. It's a bit slow. It's not the most interesting plot. Patrick Troughton is being weird. He's playing in a very weird way. Not the Doctor you kind of expect from him. And this may be partly just unfamiliarity. Right? This is one I have not spent a lot of time rewatching or re-listening to. Although I agree. I like the audio. I think the way that with the narration, it's actually a really good one. And let's just look at it is number in the grand old Doctor Who magazine rankings here.
John, for those of you not watching on YouTube, John has the Doctor Who magazine with the rankings of the second Doctor episodes.
I mean, people, it's amazing the things I get access to.
Wow.
Through my probe connections.
Wow.
What I can do is I can send money to these people and they will send me a copy of this little baby right here. Comes straight to my home. Yes. But nobody can do that. The Highlanders, not hugely popular, sitting at number 16 out of 21. So towards the bottom again, I think probably suffering a little bit from not being visual. I think, a little bit of reputation wise. Again, I like Troughton's performance. It's not but it's not the Troughton that we're used to, right? It's a very different Pat Troughton. But in a
what's one of the top? Where's Power of the Daleks?
Number 3. So War Games, Tomb of the Siren, Power of the Daleks, Web of Fears, number 5. Yeah. So yeah, those are, and I mean, those are. You got, Pat Troughton is the big monster fests, right? He's got the big episodes with monsters and all that kind of stuff. And so here's, the ones that don't have huge amounts of monsters kind of languish here. But I mean, if anything, actually, this makes this is unique in the Troughton era. I mean, it's the only historical. It's the only time we see him in this.
I have a question. Yeah. Where is Web of Fear on there?
Number 5.
Okay, so I'm vindicated.
Yes,
I have it ranked highly.
Yeah.
You
middling.
Called me a fool. All right, I plugged in our rankings of the Crimson Horror and the Highlanders into the supercomputer, and we have a new development, which is this has never happened.
Oh.
They ended up ranked right next to each other,
Ooh,
number
look at that.
79 and 80. Crimson Horror 79, Highlanders 80.
Wow.
We had some pretty different
Alright.
rankings for the two of them. That's where it ended up. So, I mean, numbers, guys. This just happens every time.
Math's incredible. I don't
We
fully
have it of the
understand
second Doctor. Actually, let me just clear that and see. We have it middle of the pack for the second Doctor, and we have done 11. How many are there total? 17?
21. So we have
21,
10 more to go. We got another one coming in hot. So
Coming in hot.
we are troutening.
Where's Mind Robber? Is Mind Robber near the bottom?
Mind Robber is number 8. It's up a little bit, but it's number 8.
So we're just off. We have that like almost in the last of everything. Well, look, you can go to mindprobe.show and you can see our rankings. You can also see our episode order if you want to watch along with us as you listen to the episodes. You can get, first of all, we kind of never mentioned this. You can get all the old episodes.
Yeah.
You can get those. Now, you can get the audio for all the old episodes for about the last 10, 15. We also have them on YouTube. You can follow us there. We'd love for you to subscribe and like us on YouTube. Helps the algorithm there. You can go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe there. Then you'll be getting the podcast every couple weeks when it comes out
and just
on Monday.
In all of the interfaces, just click things. Just click anything. Just click anything. Arrows up, thumbs up, pluses, hearts. Just click until your little heart, until your little finger falls off. Just
any
click
sort
that.
of like positive iconography that seems to, you know what I would do before you go on the website? Study symbology, and really take a look through, hieroglyphics, and just try to get a sense of
certain colors, metaphors. Just get comfortable with what you're going to be experiencing. Actually, does it matter? Actually, even if you hate it, actually, if just interact with it in any way is all that really matters.
Generally, yeah. Yes.
If there are if YouTube puts an ad in front of us, which I assume it will do,
buy whatever they tell you to do.
Buy whatever it is.
I don't care if it's like a trip to France, if it's Viagra, if it's
we fully endorse whatever product is put in front of this thing. We are 100% behind it. It will make your life better, or it will make your enemy's life worse. Whatever it's selling,
life insurance, hemp oil, Donald Trump, just whatever it is, just go for it. All right, so you can see all that on MindProbe.
And put
see all that, but
put discount code MindProbe in.
Just put that in.
It won't work. But,
it won't work. That might
will signal to someone that you thought it would
It might
work.
start a groundswell of like people in the direct marketing departments at those places being like, "Hey, we should maybe turn on this code." People seem interested in it.
Talk to the MindProbe people. They will sell their souls.
You can also see notes from old episodes. You can see the rankings, but please do go on there, subscribe. And if you want to reach out to us, you can email us, Porter at mindprobe.show, John at mindprobe.show. Reach out, send us an email, let us know how you're doing. John, what do we have in store for next episode?
All right. Next episode. When was the last time we did this? Did you miss the Cybermen? Have you missed the Cybermen, folks?
I like the Cybermen. Yeah,
well,
I missed them.
Then you're gonna love this next episode because they're coming in. The Cybermen are here. The Dr. Clara and apparently Clara's wards or whatever the heck they are.
Maybe she's in. The dad's interested in her, as we remember.
It always seems to be the case. I mean, if Clara were wandering around your place and you're a red-blooded heterosexual male, you'd probably be interested in her too.
Yeah, fair enough.
But anyway, they're off into space to meet the Cybermen. I mean, that's not the reason they're going. It's going to happen. The doctor's like, "All right, here, meet the Cybermen. Yeah, you want to travel with me some more?" In Nightmare in Silver, which is. I should say this is the return of Neil Gaiman to the old Doctor Who writing fold. Right around the time we're as Good Omens 2. I just saw a trailer drop, so we're going to see some more Neil Gaiman here soon in the real world, as well as in the fake world. And then we've paired that with The Wheel in Space, which is another second Doctor story. And we just met Jamie. Now we're going to meet Zoe for the first time. Is going to appear in The Wheel of Space. This one, interesting little tidbit here. This is a missing story, but the audio along with the telesnaps is all on BritBox, and it's only only available on BritBox. I don't have this on DVD. I have to go to. It was like a special thing.
Like a slob.
Yeah, it was like a special thing about. Now people are gonna be like, you can just buy it on Amazon, and I'm gonna check that. But I think you have to watch it on BritBox as a BritBox exclusive. It was why people, because when BritBox first got launched, it was just like Doctor Who and Are You Being Served, so they had to really push people into it. So yes, the Wheel in Space.
Well, that is very exciting, John.
Mm-hmm.
We love to hear. I'm a BritBox subscriber, and I like to hear that you're down there in the muck with me.
I love it. Now, by the way, I just have the Mind Pro Babies theme song going in my head. Mind Pro Babies, make our dreams come true.
Now, who is Nanny in this?
It's Mrs. Probe.
Oh, Mrs. Probe.
We just see her socks every once in a while in the background.
Not sure she guest starred in an episode. She'd probably like to do it again at some point.
Ooh.
We'll have to pick one.
We'll see if we're available.
Mindprobe.show.